Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy Hatfield, and from Arizona, a fellow film student from we're going to Full Sail University. In the 1920s and 30s, it was really known for the golden years, and sparked a little bit of controversy for horror movies. For of course, it being it tended to be a little more realistic than the audience was expecting, and this had a problem with censorship as well. But this introduced the first color copy of Dr. Jekyll and Hyde too. Sci-fi horror movies was pretty big in the 40s and 50s, but I guess nowadays you see one of these flicks and it's you'll probably get a kick out of laughing at one of them. But they often try to use alien-like creatures, huge insects and objects, and sometimes human deformities as well to really scare the audience at the time. And these were typically thought of using irrational fears to really scare the audience. Now, George Romero, that's a popular name. He was fairly popular in the 60s, but he was thought of to be the inventor of zombies, which is how Night of the Living Dead was actually made. But these films usually used cut off civilization or like rural areas such as farms and abandoned houses. And it was the thought of using dead, rotting flesh that would hunt around for fresh flesh to survive off of, which of course kind of urges on cannibalism. But these films were typically low budget. But even with that said, oddly enough, they were metaphorical for a lot of problems in today's or past and today's society as well, I should say. And these were typically extremist sexism and racism. Now, the cult was kind of a weird genre, if you will, but still a pretty cool one. These popular films were more from the 70s and 80s with that new fad, and they typically dealt with anything with the devil. Um, these films were like The Omen, The Exorcist, and Carrie, but the main character was often to believe to inherit supernatural powers that he or she could use at their own free will. But slashers, one of my favorites actually, was movies like Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare, stuff like that. And a lot of these films had one thing in common, which was a mass killer that would wield around with his own personalized weapon. And of course, what's a horror movie without eerie music? And these films introduce the idea of like dying in your dreams or being slaughtered by a man chasing you down with a running chainsaw and a human mask. And it was just kind of cool, but that's what invented the idea, or I shouldn't say invented, but that's what brought along the idea of urban legends that were often idolized too.